Welcome back, everyone. It's Manish, or Mr. Jane as they call me. It's been about 4.5 years since I started this YouTube channel, did a bunch of content, and then the pandemic happened, and then I stopped. So if you've followed me, you probably saw some of the videos I did. I did a total of about 14 or 15 videos in the past about supercars in and around Bombay and across India. In fact, the last video that I did that I uploaded was I got to visit the garage of Bhupesh Reddy down in Bangalore or Bengaluru. He's got a ton of 911s, got to see that. And that was back in February 2020. Then the pandemic happened, and then you didn't get to see anything from me. And that's just because I was just kind of debating what to do with the channel. And I've now come up with an idea of what I'm going to do in the future. And I'm going to start calling this YouTube series or channel, I'm going to start calling it Electric Avenue.
Oh no, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
Which probably gives you an indication of what I'm planning on covering. If you guessed electric vehicles, you're 110% correct. That is what I'm going to start talking about is EVs, which probably means about 90% of you will probably want to unsubscribe, but I wouldn't, because I definitely plan on covering some of the more interesting EVs and not just the two-wheeler segment or the three-wheel transport segment. Before I get to what I'm actually going to cover, the idea is I will be doing a monthly video, and that'll talk about the sales figures, any of the new releases that get launched, anything really newsworthy about EVs in India, and really what's happening with Tesla. This seems to be like an ongoing meme about Elon Musk and how he's going to start production or he's going to start importing. But the truth of the matter is I still haven't heard jack. And I think I'm going to stop talking about Elon and Tesla in India, but because there's so much more else happening right now in the EV space. And then as a last segment, I will probably do what I'm calling a deep dive or a spotlight. So I'll talk about things like, what's the difference between a 400 versus 800 volt architecture? Why do they call it even a skateboard architecture? These different things we'll talk about, and I'll hear from you guys what you want to hear about. So that's kind of what I'm planning on doing on a monthly basis, and covering everything EV in India. And we're going to start, like I said, calling it Electric Avenue. So now you know what I'm going to cover on a monthly basis. I thought I'd give a quick sneak peek into some of the content. So today we're going to talk about three things. One is the overall car market, and then the EV segment. Number two, I'm going to talk about one of the reasons why EVs are not as popular as ICE makers or internal combustion engine cars. And then the third is I'm going to actually show some pictures of a vehicle I just saw a couple days ago that just blows my mind from a perspective of looking nice and performance really good. So let's first talk about the overall landscape of cars in India. So if you look at financial year 2022, that ended on March 31st, 2022, the total number of two-wheelers sold was around 13.5 million, and the number of four-wheelers sold was around 3 million. So there's obviously a huge differential between two-wheelers and four-wheelers. Now, there was just recently, I don't know what it was some sort of request for information that was filed with the government, and Nitin Gadkari, the transport minister of highways, responded, and he basically said that the total number of EVs that have been registered so far in this country is 18 lakhs, or which is 1.8 million. So when you hear that, that sounds great. But the truth of the matter is, out of that 1.8 million vehicles, 900,000 are three-wheelers that are mainly used for transport. So obviously the transport industry realizes there's a huge cost savings between having petrol or diesel or CNG versus electric. So there's 900,000 there. Then another 800,000 in the two-wheel segment. So that is obviously the Ola Electrics, the Okinawa, Hero, all of those guys. So that leaves a very small sliver of EV cars that are out there. And the number that people are estimating is somewhere close to 70,000. So that is 70,000 EV four-wheelers that are in India. And out of that, I would say a good 90% is the Tata Nexon EV. And they take a bulk of it. So that leaves very little for all the other players. So when you hear about, the Porsche Taycan, the Kias, the Hyundais, the Mercedes EQS. Those are all a very, very small fraction or sliver. But that doesn't mean to say that that's not going to get better. I think it'll only get better with time. And that's the whole purpose of this YouTube channel, is to talk about the growth in this EV space, whether it's from the charging standpoint, whether it's from the industrial output side, whether it's from the government regulatory side. There's a bunch of different factors that have to play to kind of push this moving forward. And the truth of the matter is, EVs are a way to really kind of increase production, and it's a new way of doing car manufacturing, and I think that's definitely going to take off. So that is really where I feel this channel can really help, by adding information to people and letting people know what's out there. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the Tata Nexon. Like I said, is the number one selling car EV wise in India. And the reason is, if you take a look at this graphic that I'm putting up on the screen, this really compares a Tata Nexon petrol versus a Tata Nexon EV. And if you look at the initial cost of the petrol is very inexpensive, and then when you look at the 6-year running cost, it comes out about the same. Now the thing is, it's a little bit misleading, because honestly, I don't think most people really run their cars for 100,000 kilometers over 6 years. So that's kind of where it kind of comes down to, why would you end up getting an EV when it's probably cheaper to get a petrol or diesel? And I think a lot of it's driven by, is just fundamentally, does somebody want to get into something that's newer technology, maybe potentially saving the environment? Even that's, I think, a little bit of early days right now, because the truth of the matter is 90% of our electricity grid today is powered by coal, which obviously is a fossil fuel. So it's kind of it's the same thing as petrol or diesel. But that is changing. There are people that are charging their cars via solar panels, and then that means they're completely off the power grid. And I think that's going to happen more and more. And because of the amount of sunlight that we get in India, I think it's a very doable thing. So that's really it for this episode of Electric Avenue. One last thing I wanted to show you, though, is a car that I just saw a couple days ago when I was going for my my morning walk. I was on Pedder Road, and I saw this Porsche Taycan EV. This is the Turbo S, which is one of the fastest EVs you can get in India. I think the EQS is a little bit faster, but when you look at the EQS versus this Taycan, I think the Taycan blows it away from a looks perspective. It's really good. But anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to show you. Hopefully I can get into one of these Taycans in Bombay and do a video review at some point for you guys out there. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in to the very first episode. I'm going to call this episode 0, because this is more like a beta. And when the new year starts in 2023, we'll start doing these on a monthly basis. And I'd love to get your feedback and comments and anything else you'd like to see me cover in the future. Anyways, take care. It's Mr. Jain. Till next time, see you.
Oh no, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then